Don't get disturbed. I'm going to read from the New Testament. I have not returned to Methodism. Now, most of what I'm going to say later is based on this story of the prodigal son in the 15th chapter of Luke. My talk is going to be one of the few sermons I've ever written that are based upon and dedicated to some real life people that I have known and experiences that I've witnessed in families. There was once a man who had 2 sons, and the younger one said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the property." So he divided his estate between. A few days later, the younger son turned the whole of his share into cash and left home for a distant country, where he squandered in reckless living. He had spent it all when a severe famine fell upon that country, and he began to feel the pinch. So he went and attached himself to one of the local landowners, who sent him onto his farm to mind the pigs. He would have been glad to fill his belly with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. Then he came to his senses and said, "How many of my father's paid servants have more food than they can eat, and here am I starving to death? I will set off and go to my father and say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against God and against you. I am no longer fit to be called your sons. Treat me as one of your paid servants.' So he set out for his father's house. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him, and his heart went out to him. He ran to meet him, flung his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said, 'Father, I have sinned against God and against you. I am no longer fit to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Quick, fetch a robe, my best one, and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and shoes on his feet. Bring the fatted calf and kill it, and let us have a feast to celebrate the day. For this son of mine was dead and has come back to life. He was lost and is found.' And the festivities began. Now the elder son was out on the farm, and on his way back, as he approached the house, he heard the music and saw the dancing. He called one of the servants and asked what this meant. And the servant told him, 'Your brother has come home, and your father has killed the fatted calf, because he has him back safe and sound.' But he was angry and refused to go in. His father came out and pleaded with him, but he retorted, 'You know how I have slaved for you all these years. I have never once disobeyed your orders, and you never gave me so much as a kid for a feast with my friends. But now that this son of yours turns up after running through your money with his women, you have killed a fatted calf for him.' 'My boy,' said the father, 'you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. How could we help but celebrate this happy day? Your brother here was dead and has come back to life, was lost and is found.'" Speaking of money, this is a little thing that came to me the other day from my brother. in San Antonio. There's no author or source for this. Many times when I am troubled or confused, I find comfort in sitting in my backyard and having a quiet conversation with Jesus. This happened to me again after a particularly difficult day. And I said, Jesus, why do I work so hard? And I heard the reply, men find many ways to demonstrate the love they have for their family. You work hard to have a peaceful, beautiful place for your friends and family together. And I said, I thought that money was the root of all evil. And the reply was, no, the love of money is the root of all evil. Money is but a tool. It can be used for good or bad. I was starting to feel better, but I still had that burning question. So I asked it, Jesus, I said, what is the meaning of life? Why am I here? And he replied, that is a question many men ask. The answer is in your heart, and is different for everyone. And now I would love to chat with you some more, Senor, but I have to finish mowing your yard. That one creeps up on you.
We're pleased to have our speaker today, Joe Adams, who has spoken here on many occasions, and it's always delightful, insightful, and good food for thought for the coming week, as well as a lot more. He started as a Methodist, but found his way eventually to the light, is now a Unitarian Universalist. We're glad to have you, Joe. On family values.
There were some clouds along the way to finding that light. Our society crams into the last 2 months of the calendar year a series of observances that for the most part center around the family. At least that's what we are led to believe. From the time we carve a pumpkin face in late October till we pop the cork on the champagne on New Year's Eve, we go through an annual ritual now referred to as simply the holidays. As good as this season can be, in many ways, it's also a pressure cooker. A few years ago, I recall we were instructed on the evils of celebrating Halloween. And Halloween being a family activity in many respects, schools and churches and homes were hard put to relax and enjoy it. The fact that Halloween has religious roots going way back was largely ignored by the politically correct folks who wanted us to change our ways in our families. We're told every day now that the family is under attack by evil forces, by distractions, by secular perversions. It's insinuated that the family must entrench and recapture traditional family values. Family Research Council, based in Washington, D.C., and the Focus on the Family, led by Dr. James Dobson, would direct us back to our, as they say, the Judeo-Christian biblical way of the family. In my estimation, this effort is a distortion of reality. The crusade by these forces in our culture to save the family is a reversal of logic, which in the long run will be counterproductive, because family values cannot be prescribed, politicized, or legislated by church or state. Homogenizing families and their values is ridiculous. I have studied families for years now, my own and others. Both of my careers have put me in contact with families in very intimate ways. And my conclusions are, one, every family is different. And two, every family is to some degree dysfunctional. Simply because people dysfunction. We can't help it. I suppose we all have our favorite Christmas movies. There is, of course, the classic It's a Wonderful Life. There's one titled simply A Christmas Story, which is one of my favorites. A few years ago, I discovered another one. It's not your usual Christmas drama, but it is very captivating in its honesty. It's called The Ref, as in referee. It's about a ne'er-do-well crook and a family he's taken hostage in their home on Christmas Eve. By the time this family has Christmas dinner and a gift exchange over which the crook has to referee, the air is filled with angst, long-standing animosities come to the surface, sibling rivalries rage, marriages come loose at the seams, and the crook is ready to give up the crime business. The family gift exchange was a riot. It involved two sons, their wives and children, and the mother, a wealthy, controlling matron with a martyr complex. Her gifts reflected this. She gave socks, handkerchiefs, and ties. In fact, in a hot argument between a daughter-in-law and the mother yelled, "Just who do you think you are talking to me that way?" And the daughter-in-law fired back, "I'm slipper socks, medium." In another exchange, this time between a son and the mother, the son lost his temper and yelled, "Mother, next Christmas I'm going to bring you a big wooden cross, and you can be nailed to it, and we will worship you and your money and your sacrifices." I think Dennis Leary plays the lead in this. Kevin Spacey is in the movie. If you've never seen it, you're in for a treat. Brings Christmas right into focus. And now for my prodigal son and his elder brother. The story of the prodigal son is the third in a group of little parables told by Jesus in the 15th chapter of Luke. And the Christian church has traditionally used these stories to call sinners to repentance at revival meetings. Anyone here who was raised in or attended any Protestant church that used the evangelical approach remembers these stories being used as backgrounds for revival sermons. The first in this triad is about a lost sheep a shepherd who has 100 sheep and loses one, leaves the 99 and finds the lost one, whereupon he and his friends rejoice. I do not see a lot of logic in leaving 99 sheep to look for one that might not be found. But who am I to question? The second in the triad is about a woman who has 10 silver coins and loses one of them. She turns her house upside down until she finds it, then calls her friends in to celebrate. Both of these stories end with, "Oh, what great joy there is in heaven over one sinner who repents." I strongly suspect that some first century preaching has been edited in to some of these parables. In modern times, many a town drunk has sat on the back row of the church during revival meetings, listening to sermons using these stories as lures to get him to come down front and get saved. The third in this group is known as the prodigal son story, which I read. It also is a lost and found story. However, this one is about a person, a family, and the relationships hinted at in the story form a tale of their own, a tale that goes way beyond the simplicity frequently ascribed to it. That is, simply a happy ending and rejoicing. The word prodigal is part of the culture's language. We have all known prodigals. Most of us probably have a little prodigal in us. I see all sorts of family value scenarios in the prodigal son story. There's a lot down deep in it to be gleaned. Therefore, I want to stray from traditional interpretations and let our minds play with this story. It has occurred to me that the boy's request for his share of the family loot might have come after years of parent-son episodes. It is possible the father was relieved to have this way out. There's no hesitation in the story. Mind you now, what I'm doing now is not scriptural. The father might have said to himself, well, let the boy take the money and go to Australia and learn what life is. At least he won't be here any longer. I'm tired of paying his bond and his bills and his speeding tickets. I see this particular child in the family as a spoiled, squeaking wheel type. He's been given much attention and many opportunities, merely because he was always finding ways to get attention. It may have been because he was the youngest son or the baby of the family. And when he screwed up, excuses were made on his behalf, because it certainly wasn't his fault. His quiet older brother and sisters never had a chance. In fact, I've known some families where sisters didn't have much of a chance anyway, simply because they were girls. And so the family's squeaking wheel gets the grease, and ultimately his share of the family estate. A bit early, but he's on his way. But as is typical, he's not gone long. He finds independence not to his liking. It isn't the same outside the protective cover of Mama and Daddy's roof. The crux is that he has screwed up away from home as much as he did at home. And he had taken his baggage with him, both types. And so here he comes, feeling pretty low, mournful, apologetic, but surprise, surprise, he gets a hero's welcome. The fatted calf is slaughtered and a big party is thrown. It is at this point that the Christian evangelist usually kicks it into passing gear and quotes the father in the story, "This my son was lost and is found." The prodigal has seen the error of his ways and has come home. There's no mention of the lost portion of the estate. No one says, "We thought you were gone. We gave your bedroom to your little sister." Two facts must be observed at this point about the prodigal. This young man had gotten to do exactly what he wanted to do, even though he screwed up. And secondly, when he returned home, he did so for self-serving reasons. He was hungry. And so the family settles in to wait for the next time they have to finance another adventure. Basically, they settle in hoping the prodigal will grow up and be responsible. After all, he's up in his 30s now. Then there's the other son, referred to as the elder brother. There have been some sermons delivered on the elder brother too. Sometimes they have not treated him too kindly. He's been pictured as a bad sport, a sourpuss, a family member with a bad attitude, a prodigal of another kind. I remember reading a sermon on this parable titled "Two Kinds of Prodigal," which pictured the prodigal as the usual type of sinner and the elder brother as a sinner of temperament. However, I disagree with this interpretation of the elder brother and the bad rap he has frequently gotten. Here we have a man, and today it could have just as easily been a sister, who stayed home and tended to the responsibilities at hand. It might have been a difficult thing to do, because it's normal for people upon reaching young adulthood to want to leave home and take their place in the world. And in that sense, the younger brother had done the normal thing. However, he had blown it, and the elder brother saw this and resented it. I don't know how many families I have known where one or more siblings held the fort for years, while others raised hell, blew the family's resources, and a chance for a decent life. And when the prodigals decided to come home, Sometimes on several occasions, they were treated by the parents with honor, usually making excuses for their behavior. And invariably, there is an elder one, not necessarily in age, standing in the wings. They have been responsible. They have been loyal. They have worked their fingers to the bone. They have never been given any significant financial support for their own dreams, either because there wasn't anything left or because parents sometimes don't notice the elder types or their needs. They are just there, tending the fields. The late Dr. Leslie Weatherhead, former minister of London's City Temple Methodist, tells a touching story about a so-called elder daughter. It had fallen this woman's lot in life to care for her aging parents, which she did with loyalty and appreciation. This didn't mean she didn't wonder at times what her life could have been. She had not married. She had not left home. She, in the family's scheme of things, had been left with this duty, all dreams aside. One thing she did each morning was to rise early and fix her parents their morning tea. For years she would reach in the cabinet for the tea tin, which had on it a picture of the Rock of Gibraltar. It must have been the logo for that tea company. The rock was among the first things she saw each morning. But in the fullness of time, as Dr. Weatherhead put it, the parents died, leaving her alone, but with a small inheritance. And after a time of adjustment, she decided she would use part of her money for a sea cruise, something she had only dreamed about. And so she set sail. About 2 days out from port, she was awakened in her cabin by the ship's breakfast call. She got out of bed, put on her clothes, and decided to take a look out of the porthole. She pulled aside the little curtain, and of all things, there was the Rock of Gibraltar, the real thing. Her first thought was, the damn thing has followed me. But slowly her mood of resentment gave way to love and appreciation. A love based not on what she had given up in life, but on the love and care she had given. Not always in a good mood, mind you, but nevertheless given. It is stories like this that bring about the need in our culture to redefine our popular notions of celebrity and heroism. There are plenty of people who don't make a lot of noise, who don't do big things or go big places, but oh, how the world needs them, even if they aren't always in a good mood. A perfect illustration of this is the movie A Wonderful Life. Through a series of circumstances, the elder brother watches his brother leave and become a war hero, while he remains in his hometown and takes care of family business, gets married, has a family, battles corruption, all the while dreaming of the day when he, too, will be able to leave home and make his mark. The climax of the story, you remember, takes place when he considers suicide. And an angel visits him and shows him what a terrible place his town and its people would have become had he not been there. That's quite a vision by which to measure a life. There's another thought at this point. And people have learned this the hard way. Families can't exist in a vacuum. Families can't survive healthfully in isolation. Families can't live in exile. Families need community. That is, extended family. Family clannishness, as I've seen many times, can create some very undesirable results. An ingrowing, an in-turning that becomes pathological. Part of that community for us is this church. And indeed, we are similar to a family with many of the same characteristics. And being part of this church means dealing with this. We too have a set of family values we subscribe to, with a variety of interpretations, I grant you, but the basic values are there. Like a healthy family, we must settle our disagreements, dream our dreams, raise our money, do our programs, seek truth with understanding, recognizing our various talents and personalities. And so, as we celebrate these family-centered holidays, let us celebrate also the wider vision towards which these days point.
For our closing words, this is from Frederick Gillis. May the love that overcomes all differences, that heals all wounds, that puts to flight all fears, that reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us, now and always. Coffee and conversation.